Welcome to Keeping It Real with RI Realtors. This is your go-to source for what's happening in real estate right now, with host Mike Pereira.
Welcome, Rebekah Wagoner, our Associate Counsel here at the Rhode Island Association of Realtors.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
Excellent. We're going to get into a topic that a lot of people have been talking about for years and years and years, and that's an ADU. And I'm going to leave it up to you to explain what that actually means. What is an ADU?
Yeah, an accessory dwelling unit. There have been a lot of names for this type of unit over the years. Granny suite, mother-in-law suite, in-law suite, potentially even a basement unit, right? So what it means, practically speaking, is a secondary unit, a secondary suite that is secondary, like I said, to the primary. So if you have a house and you have a mother-in-law suite over the garage, that's an ADU.
Okay, that's interesting. So I feel like that's been around forever. I think the term that we used in Rhode Island for years is in-law.
Yes.
But you just taught me a couple others, like the granny suite. I've never thought of.
That's a UK term, but that has somehow kind of made its way over here. But yeah, they all mean the same thing, and that's all considered an ADU.
Okay, it's always been a hot topic because, there was always a question whether it was legal, it was not legal, and whatever. Can you advertise a property as having an in-law? So it was very questionable for years. And I'm talking, even as far back as 20 years ago when I was practicing, you had to be very careful. But what is the current law here in Rhode Island about these ADUs?
You are not wrong about the confusion behind ADUs, and a lot of that has come from the separateness between municipalities and the city's laws and the state laws on it. So in 2024, the speaker in Rhode Island decided to put forward a law that standardizes the practice of what is an ADU. Can municipalities regulate it? Does the state regulate it? So the current standard for an ADU is that municipalities can't outright ban them, but they can still regulate them. So the whole point of that 2024 law was to increase our housing stock because we need it, to make more places available for potentially elderly people or disabled people, as well as give people a source of income, right? So that was kind of the whole point, as well as to prevent the overt ban on ADUs.
Okay.
So you can market them.
So in Rhode Island, as of now, what can be built as an ADU?
So there's a term that's called as of right. And that just means that if you are a homeowner with a certain size lot, depending on the municipality, it depends on how big that lot must be, you can have an ADU. So that could be an attached ADU, so like a garage that you've converted. That could be a straight up conversion, like we're taking my basement and we're making it into a separate suite with, a kitchen, bathrooms, all of that. And it also could just be a separate, so a whole different parcel, like on the same parcel of land, we're creating another building. So those are the three big types of ADUs: attached, converted, and not attached. Not attached. Detached. Yes.
Just like I learned as of right today.
As of right, yeah. It's a fun legal term that just means you have the homeowner has the right to do this. Again, just because they have the right, they still have to follow those zoning requirements in the municipality.
Okay.
So that could be setbacks. It needs to be set back from a certain part of the lot. Sewer, septic, electricity, all of those are part of that zoning piece that still has to be certified by the municipality.
So that was what my next question was going to be, is what does the municipality control when it comes to these? So what you're saying is the state says you have to allow for it. The municipalities, whether it's a city or town, will acknowledge that, right? They can't refuse it as long as it meets their specific requirements per that city or town, or even zoning, right?
Correct.
It could be, 2 blocks over has a different zoning classification.
Yes.
And it may be easier for them versus you in like a different, the other zoning classification.
Of course, and it actually can get a little bit even more specific in terms of getting a special variance, a special permit. A municipality might require that if you want to put in, quote unquote, a disabled person or rent to family members. That all are stuff that can be specific to the municipality, or even can you rent them out for money at all? So again, unfortunately, you're going to have to check with your municipality.
Given that the municipalities have control over the regulations, do you feel as if there's a sort of tug of war battle between the state and the municipalities right now? Because I'm assuming that not every municipality is making it easy for somebody to convert to an ADU.
You would be 100% right on that. There is a tug of war. The state the municipality cannot preempt the state law. So that means that the municipality can't just be like, well, we don't want to do it, so we're not. No, they have to do it, but they can make it a little bit harder than a municipality that is welcoming of ADUs. Another big tug of war could be with DEM, state agencies, because of what they're requiring for sewage, for potentially septic. That could be a little bit more of a tug of war, depending on what the municipality is requiring.
So an environmental impact as well.
Correct.
So they aren't lying when they say new housing starts have struggled over the last decade and a half because of perhaps overregulation or regulation or red tape.
Exactly. So the law does state you can't make it overly difficult, but overly difficult has degrees, right? If the municipality can show that it's for a specific reason, then it's not overly difficult. But a lot of times that requirement doesn't actually need to be there.
Do you think there are cases that are going to the state where people are saying that the municipality are being extremely difficult with regards to perhaps an ADU application or permit?
Yes, I've seen a couple of case studies on that. But if the municipality has a valid reason, it goes to the municipality.
Okay, so
because they're not outright banning it.
Okay. But
they're just making it very difficult for it to go through. And the municipality can require an ADU to get recertified every year, to get re-permitted every year. If you sell it or transfer it, you might have to go through that whole process again. Or you might not be allowed to rent to the person that you want because it was originally zoned for an elderly in-law. So now you might not be able to rent to a student.
That is very interesting. It sounds like some municipalities don't want them.
They don't want them.
Okay.
You are correct. They don't want them. So they're trying their best to make it a little bit more difficult. And then there are some municipalities that are like, yes, bring them in. We want them. We want them. We want the money that comes from them. And on that note is some tax assessor records will show that there's an ADU and some don't.
Okay. Now, is that because they're behind on updating different properties? Because that makes no sense to me. You would think the municipality would jump on reassessing the property and increasing your tax base.
Yes, you would assume that. But there's a couple reasons why. So there could be a legally non-conforming unit. So it might have been grandfathered in. It could have been for a family member, so they're not paying tax. So there's not a rental income source. So why would you wouldn't need to tax assess? And then, of course, there's some that are just a little behind the times.
Okay, so you're saying that if the unit is, let's say, being utilized for a family member,
yes,
you can't increase the property value because of an additional dwelling on the property?
It depends on the municipality.
It's very interesting.
It is, and that was one of the points behind the 2024 law, was to help kind of make uniform standards, but still defer a little bit to the municipalities. And some municipalities have kind of run away with that.
We have too many municipalities. I mean, we're the smallest state with 39 municipalities.
We do.
Insane.
And of course, when you add zoning into that, that can also change the requirements. Again, like you said, you could be 2 streets away, same municipality, different zoning.
Right.
And originally, someone might have gotten a special variance to allow for this one very specific type of rentor or family member to live there. They sell the property, and the person who moves in thinks, well, they got an ADU permitted. I now have an ADU. That's not always the case.
That was going to lead me into my next question, was the transferability of an ADU. Now, years ago, like I said, when we were practicing real estate, long before this topic became was brought out into the spotlight because of the housing shortage, we were concerned about whether or not a municipality would observe or acknowledge the transfer of an in-law. And municipalities, when you went out to them, couldn't give you a definitive answer or refuse to put it on paper where they would be held accountable. So realtors were very cautious when it came time to selling a property that had a quote-unquote in-law. What is the transferability these days?
It's the same. So the big red flag, the big thing, if anybody watching is going to take away, is do not assume transferability, ever. Because the municipality could require you to, like I said, to do the re-permitting, to do the rezoning, and of course make sure that the building is up to code, like you would hope it would be. That those zoning codes could have changed, the building codes could have changed.
Right.
So you would need to update it. So just because you bought the property with an ADU does not mean you can use the property with an ADU.
That's very interesting. Now, is it a matter? Would you think that like having to re-up the permit every year? You think that's a matter of just income generation for the municipality? Because just isn't, I mean, what's the logic behind that?
To make sure it's up to code.
Okay.
A lot of that is to make sure it is up to code, but you would think that those codes would have stayed the same over the years.
Well, what about, a single family home? They don't have to like recertify a residence, and that's probably not up to code, especially if it was built in, let's say, the 1920s.
Exactly, but the thought behind an ADU is they're newer. So they should be up to code. There might be more transfer. It's a different type of class of people living there because it's secondary to the property.
Probably a larger liability.
Liability. And again, on that note, just because, like I said, just because it's there doesn't mean that it needs to be. So if you're a realtor, if you're a consumer, calling your local office and asking questions is the right thing to do. Because you should know, hey, is this conforming? Do you know that there's an ADU on this property, right? If I buy it, do I have to redo it? Or can I just file a quick piece of paperwork and it's all good, right? It depends on the municipality. It depends on how they allow that to move forward. And there is a lot of red tape in some municipalities because they don't want that transfer. Something might have been grandfathered in,
right,
and now the new council doesn't want it.
Would you advise people to get that in writing, though, with the town? Because I've found that the town had said things over the phone and then said they had never said that. Not specifically to ADUs, but I've seen it in the past.
As a lawyer, I'm going to always recommend you get things in writing.
We're not going to get into what this means, but CYA, right?
CYA, exactly.
All right.
But no, definitely. And if you as a consumer don't feel comfortable, ask your realtor. They can contact those people as well. They're going to be able to ask the questions in order for things to close. They're going to be your advocate. So they're going to know, and they're going to be able to ask some questions as well.
And if the realtor is unsure, could they call here and talk to legal counsel?
They definitely can. They can call the realtor, the legal hotline. We are also putting out a fact sheet with it's about 5 pages as of now, that has questions that you can ask municipalities in terms of like, is it conforming? Will I need to get this checked every year? Or is this only if I sell? Is there a restriction on who can live there? Right? Because that's a lot of things that might not be in the tax assessor database, is who can live there. Right? So those are all things that you should follow up with and ask, because that
Makes
could
sense.
change.
A lot of those municipality websites are extremely archaic.
They are, which is why I also recommend you call someone, because they're going to have the most accurate, up-to-date information ideally, as opposed to some of those websites that might not have been updated for a couple years.
Before we wrap things up, I wanted to talk about ADUs in special circumstances like family members and handicap.
Yes.
Are there exceptions to those rules there? Is there more flexibility perhaps with the municipalities because there's perhaps a physical need for an age in place or someone with a physical disability?
So usually they don't require a special permit or a special variance, but they still are required to follow the building code safety, if not more so, right? Because of the specific nature of them. And the rules around potential renting in terms of, can you collect rent from them? And if you collect rent from them, the next tenant that you have, can you rent to them and can you collect rent from them? Because sometimes that might follow the ADU. If you have someone who's a family member, you might only be able to rent to family members.
Okay. Well, I was going to ask that question. Can you, at face value, rent out the ADU to a family member? Meaning, like, let's say all municipalities and the state agree that it's only, an ADU is only going to qualify for an actual family member, right?
Okay,
A
yes.
bloodline or through marriage.
Yes.
Could you still collect rent from them?
It depends on the municipality.
Okay, so again, it
So
comes
some
down
of them
to,
are like, no, you can't.
Okay.
You can't collect money from them. This is a family member, right? You can't collect rent, or it's a nominal amount, like $1. And some are like, no, that you're renting this out.
Interesting.
You have to, but then you sell the property or they move out and you want someone else in. A lot of times in a lot of municipalities, it follows. So you might still only have to rent to a municipality, and based on how you collected rent the first time, it might follow.
Okay,
So that's another question to ask. Does this follow the ADU?
okay.
Do I have to do new permitting to get it to be able to, can I rent now to a college kid? And unfortunately, with like college kids who most likely would love to live in an ADU, some towns, some municipalities don't want an influx of college kids in their nice quiet neighborhoods.
Interesting.
So those might be more of a highly regulated type of subset of people.
That's very interesting. And I don't know if you know the answer to this question, but are there potential financing issues because of these units?
Yeah. So they're for like homeowners insurance, for financing for a mortgage, there are. And so can you collect rent? Does that count as a source of income that you need to put on your mortgage, or does it not? Right? It depends on your lender. For that type of piece. But that is something you need to ask, because in some municipalities, in the worst case, you can't count that as a source of income.
So then it doesn't count as, like an increased value or the amount of money
Correct.
that you qualify for in a loan based on how much the potential income is,
Exactly.
like a
Or-
multifamily, right?
Yeah, exactly. Or a grant.
Okay,
Sometimes
yeah.
if you have a grant, that might exclude you from being able to rent.
Very interesting.
So please do your checking. A lot of those, insurance places or homeowners, not homeowners insurance, mortgages, they will tell you if you ask.
So is it good to be truthful with everybody? Because, I mean, if you lie in order, because you really want the house.
Yeah, if you
And you lie, and the insurance company finds out post-closing, and they drop you like a hot potato, you're in hot water.
exactly. So be truthful, right? Because unless you choose not to use the ADU, right?
Right,
That's
you
the
can-
other option. You just don't use it, right? It's on your land, but you don't use it. But definitely be truthful, because they could drop you.
That's very interesting.
Even though it's allowed as of right for you to have one, how you use it can still be utilized by the municipality.
It's so complex.
It's very complex, and people are still trying to refine it. Not a lot of great solutions. When I was doing some research on this, I found that there's over 1 million ADUs in the country, and that was from 3 years ago. And that was documented ADUs.
Right.
So who knows how many actually exist? But this is one of the biggest growing sets in this country because of the housing shortage.
Makes total sense. Yeah, it's quite complicated. Before we wrap up, is there any information on the Rhode Island Association of Realtors website for our members, and information on the public-facing website, RILiving.com, about ADUs?
So there is information on both of those websites. We have videos that talk about both ADUs and what that means for consumers as well as realtors. So you can take a look at both of those.
Excellent. Yeah, well, thank you very much for
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, spending time with me and talking everything ADU
Everything
as
ADU,
of right.
As of right. Thank you so much. And again, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to the legal department.
Will do.